Here we go.
1984, I taught in a French high school. My degree's in French.
Well, did you test out your French today with the president?
The question ready in my head, qu'est-ce que c'est la difficulté, Monsieur le Président? But you know what? I never got close enough.
Oh, James.
What's French for these things happen? Ces choses se passent.
C'est la vie. Anyway, I'm Mark Stone.
And I'm James Matthews. Welcome to day 37 of Trump 100. It's 3 years to the day that Russia invaded Ukraine. And it's the day that Presidents Trump and Macron met at the White House to discuss restoring peace.
Yes, President Trump said peace is just weeks away.
And can Trump seal the deal with Zelensky for the minerals worth millions?
Well, it's just gone, 8:15 in the evening here in Washington, D.C. It's been a long day. Let's get through it.
So, Mark, Emmanuel Macron, French president, has become the first European leader to visit the White House in Trump's second term. A big moment for a number of reasons.
Yeah, a big moment indeed. And it's actually taken quite a long time for a European leader to get here. We've seen the Indian Prime Minister here. We've seen the Israeli Prime Minister. We've seen quite a few world leaders get to Washington, but the Europeans hadn't managed it. But then over the course of the past week, so much has happened, so much angst between Europe and the United States that this week, I think it had to happen. And we knew in the diary that the British Prime Minister was on his way here. And then maybe in a very Macron-like way, he managed to pip Keir to the post. And on such an important day, because it is 3 years to the day since Vladimir Putin's Russia invaded Ukraine, I vividly remember it because I was covering it from here in Washington that day, from my basement, in fact. It was always probably exactly this time 3 years ago. I thought it was going to be a quiet night, and then the phone rang, and it was the news desk. And within an hour of that, Putin had announced his special military operation, as he described it. And very shortly after that, bombs were landing on Kyiv.
Today was the first of an important few days at the White House. It's not every day they do world peace, but on days when the French president comes calling with the UK Prime Minister to follow, world peace is very much the agenda. Emmanuel Macron, he breezed into the West Wing on Monday morning. First up was a video call with G7 leaders sat beside Donald Trump, marking the conflict anniversary.
Yeah, quite the image. Macron had managed to seat himself behind the Resolute Desk. Incidentally, it's not the Resolute Desk. I'll tell you why later in our chat. But he managed to seat himself next to Donald Trump behind the desk in the Oval Office. Quite the statement, I think, and quite the coup for Europe after such a tricky week. To suddenly be there in the room. I thought it was an interesting moment. He disappeared, didn't he, to Blair House, the presidential guest house, after that G7 call. Then he came back. It was all quite choreographed. Then he came back, this time in a car, pulled into the West Wing and went in. And then we saw the testosterone flowing. The bromance that we have become used to. I think a bromance that was actually quite useful to Macron, and testosterone that was perhaps fueling the diplomacy, yeah?
It was a hard watch, though, wasn't it? Macron, hand on Donald Trump's thigh, the giggling, the kind of midi wrestling. I mean, it was like a fully clothed Alan Bates wrestles Oliver Reed for me. But, listen, if that works for them, great.
He's a smart customer, I will tell you that. You remember? That wasn't exactly what we agreed to.
Well, honestly, I think actually, that room has seen so much history. This time it was seeing some proper bromance, man love, whatever you want to call it. But actually, it's important, I think, because remember, Macron has a really good relationship with Donald Trump. These two have a relationship that stretches back into Trump's first presidency. They kind of have an understanding. And I think at this delicate moment in the transatlantic relationship, to have that with Donald Trump is really important. And I think Macron just put it on in spades. And it also enabled him. Macron heard Donald Trump say something that was frankly nonsense. And in a way that many, many world leaders right now would not be willing or able to do, Macron was able to say, hang on a minute, hang on a minute, bro, that's not true.
Just so you understand, Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money. To be clear.
And he corrected Trump, and he did it with a smile. Trump took it. That was a really important diplomatic moment, I think.
Yeah, important for Macron to pin down the facts. Facts are important here in terms of the starting point, the road towards a solution. Europe, Ukraine, and the United States need to agree. They need to get Trump to agree on who was the aggressor in all of this, who was the victim. So I see why Macron felt it necessary just to step in.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, what Macron did and what Keir Starmer needs to do later this week is come to Washington and to flatter Donald Trump, because they know he likes that, to thank him for stuff that they genuinely are thankful for, and that is American support in Ukraine that has dated back 3 years, but also delicately, carefully, to be able to remind Donald Trump why his support for Europe is so important. And I think what Macron did brilliantly today was just to kind of sort of frame it through Donald Trump's optics, if you like, saying to Donald Trump, look, you like to be a winner. You like to be the victor. And you also say that you want peace. In order to be the winner, in order to get peace, what you have got to do is not capitulate to Vladimir Putin. What you've got to do is show support for Europe and be a defense backstop for us, for Europeans. And in return, of course, we need to spend more on defense. That's effectively what, with his French charm, that is what I think Emmanuel Macron achieved quite successfully today.
Yeah, I think you're right. When you look at that, it's infantile. I think to go into a serious negotiation about a serious conflict that's cost tens of thousands of lives, to be reduced to dealing with the leader of the free world in simple, basic terms that, frankly, a child could understand. There is a war. There is an aggressor. There has been a victim. Russia invaded Ukraine. This is school book stuff. And to have to set it out in very plain terms, to have to also flatter Donald Trump, to stroke his ego, I mean, it's almost reduced a world crisis, a world war in mainland Europe to an episode of The Apprentice, frankly.
I was going to say, James, why don't you tell us what you really think? You make a good point. I mean, look, I think in simple terms, in the Elysee Palace and in Downing Street right now, they are just trying to work out how to meet Donald Trump where he is, how to appeal to him, how to make sure that he complies with what they want. And there are certain buttons that they feel they need to push.
My point is, it's a sad reflection that should have to be the case. It should be the case that people like J.D. Vance can go to Munich and berate European countries for the way that their countries are run, misrepresent the policies of different countries, talk about immigration, free speech, and throw untruths at leaders of European countries. It should be the case that he's able to do that. And the European countries are able to say, to react in the way that they did, to be appalled, to berate him. But, what we have here is a situation where you're talking to Donald Trump, US president, on whom peace in Ukraine depends. And the French president has to play this game that reduces both him and reduces Donald Trump. I can see why he did it. I just think it's very unfortunate that that's where he is and that's where we are.
Yeah. Behind that, the body language, the bromance, there is the mineral deal to consider, which seems to have come along quite quickly over the course of the past few days. This is the deal Donald Trump wants to do with Ukraine, basically taking ownership of 50% of its rare earths. Now, Donald Trump has said that he could meet Zelensky very soon, maybe this week, maybe next week, and that Zelensky will sign this minerals deal after previously saying no. Remember, that's what led to the big fallout last week. Zelensky saying Trump was in a disinformation bubble, Trump responding that Zelensky was a dictator. Something's changed. I think behind the scenes, the deal has been massaged a little. We don't know the details. Backroom negotiations went on. We don't know what they were, but the deal has been tweaked. Both sides now seem to be agreeing to it. It's classic real estate stuff, really, isn't it, James?
Yeah, and that's a worry. Donald Trump is the king of real estate, and the philosophy behind real estate is always be closing, close the deal, make money, do what's good for you. And in this instance, he needs to do a deal, but this deal matters to everybody. Everybody needs to get a share of peace, justice, punishment for an aggressor, and that remains an open question.
The other interesting point is that Vladimir Putin has been talking about rare earths in that part of the world as well. And that's interesting because a lot of the rare earths in Ukraine are actually in the east of Ukraine, in a part of the country that is still occupied by Russia. So I think we could see Russia perhaps wanting at least to be part of any deal on minerals underneath Ukraine.
I thought during the news conference, Macron certainly was talking up the positivity of it all, spoke about it, this meeting, as a turning point. But there was a distance between Trump and Macron, I thought. Trump spoke of pursuing a ceasefire as soon as possible. Macron, he was speaking about a truce, followed by a peace deal that had clear guarantees for Ukraine's protection. He was talking the longer game. Macron spoke about security guarantees, deterrence on the American side, but Trump did not. I thought there was an opportunity here for Donald Trump to offer his unequivocal support for Ukraine and for the path to peace, as Ukraine would see it and Europe would see it. Trump could have made that clear, but he didn't.
He didn't do it, no, nor was he really asked it. I was a bit frustrated in the news conference because the questions were pretty softball. I thought I was sitting right at the back, but I was in the aisle. I was in an aisle seat. Which, unlike on an aeroplane, if you're in the East Room, an aisle seat is good because you can see and you hope that they can see you at the front. And I thought I caught Donald Trump's eye at one point with my hand up. Of course, he hadn't seen me at all. And I didn't get the chance to ask him whether or not he could there and then guarantee that America would come to Europe's defense, whether America would abide by Article 5 of the NATO treaty, attack on one as an attack on all. And I was going to ask Macron up front, do you trust Donald Trump? But I didn't get to. So there you go, James, another time.
Yeah. Well, he caught your eye, Mark, and he thought, no danger. Am I going to take a question from that guy who does Trump 100? I know what he'll be about. Going into the meeting, the backdrop was not conducive to confidence in terms of just the bigger picture and Ukraine's interests. Because up the road at the United Nations, the United States didn't support a resolution that was on the table which affirmed Ukraine's sovereignty and its territorial integrity.
Yeah, the United Nations chamber is often a place where principles are trumped by tactics. And I think today was one of those days where 193 countries supported a vote, a UN resolution designed to condemn Russia on this anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine. So you might expect that one of those countries that would condemn Russia would be the United States. 18 countries opposed this call, condemning and calling for the immediate withdrawal of Russian troops. And among those 18 countries were Russia, of course, Belarus, North Korea, and the United States. Yes, the US voted alongside Belarus, North Korea, and Russia. An extraordinary statement that I think plays into Putin's hands. As I say, was this tactical? Well, behind the scenes, the Americans are saying yes. They are voting tactically in order to keep Russia in the negotiation. Or was this a sellout and a stunning American realignment? Either way, the symbolism was inescapable, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, James, before we go, I was going to tell you about the Resolute Desk, which doesn't appear to be in the Oval Office at the moment. Did you spot that?
I must confess I didn't, but I'm dying to know why.
Well, first of all, do you know the history of the Resolute Desk? I bet you do.
No, tell me.
Okay. So it is timber from the British Arctic explorer HMS Resolute a gift to President Hayes from Queen Victoria in 1880 as a token of goodwill and friendship. So it's a bit awkward that on the week that Keir Starmer is going to the Oval Office, it's not there.
Oh, dear.
Well, the reason it's not there is actually quite funny. Apparently, it is gone for a bit of renovation. But it's gone for renovation just a few days after young ex-Musk, that is one of Elon Musk's sons, was seen wiping a bogey on the Resolute Desk. We all know what a germaphobe Donald Trump is. So the rumor is that the president has had the desk taken out of the Oval Office to be thoroughly cleaned before it's brought back.
You know the worst thing about that?
Go on.
We're going to have to watch coverage over several days with American broadcasters calling a bogey a booger, and that's beyond the pale. I can't have that.
That's it for today. Before we go, a reminder to send us your questions about Trump, about Ukraine, the mineral deal, Elon Musk, anything else you want to know. Ask us. We'll do our very best to answer them on Sunday's Q&A episode.
And if you don't already, follow Trump 100 wherever you're listening. Thanks very much for joining us on day 37 of Trump 100. See you tomorrow for day 38.
See you then. Bye-bye.